Welcome, everybody. This is our first episode of the new Matbakh series. Welcome, Omar. Omar is a Jordanian chef and food artist whose work gives a new meaning to food creation. Although his attraction to world cuisines is undeniable, Omar remains true to his origins, drawing most of his inspiration from Middle Eastern and Jordanian roots. He's developed many artistic twists on popular dishes, giving birth to liquid hummus, transparent take on the traditional za'atar manaish, transparent labneh, and a modern take on mensaf, among many others. Most notably, in 2017, Omar's creation, Jameed Chocolate, a revised salty dried yogurt creation, earned him international recognition. He has been featured in many national and international media outlets such as CNN, BBC, Reuters, Al Jazeera, and publications such as Harper's Bazaar, Architectural Digest, and others. Omar, welcome to Matbakh.
Hi, Kifak. Thank you for having me, first of all. I'm a big fan of Afikra and a big fan of your work, guys. And it's really as an honor to actually to be on it. And I like that Al Matbakh, it's a fresh take on food where culture is the actual ingredient. And I think that's very interesting because nowadays life is going where culture would be the actual ingredient. So this is a very avant-garde thing, and really I'm glad to be on this amazing series with amazing legends in the Middle East that I'm really honored to be amongst.
Thank you so much. Well, we're honored to have you here.
Thank you.
So let's start with where you are. So you're in Jordan right now. That's where you're calling from. You're Jordanian. You grew up in Jordan. And I'd love to sort of talk briefly about what your relationship was like growing up to food in Jordan.
I want to start actually by once you told me you wanted me to be on Afikra, and I thought, what a remarkable. There is something called, and I think this we'll brush a couple of times on this. It's called Deus ex machina in Latin. It's called the divine intervere, like the hand of the divine, the coincidence. Sometimes things lead to, sometimes things align perfectly when things are ready. And the moment you told me Afikra, and I just hit me something that Afikra means an idea. Okay, it's just this idea. That's the initial, that's the meaning in Arabic. And I wanted to start actually by, I was thinking with the amazing lineup you did, and that really this is about culture, it's not about cooking, okay? And then it hit me something that there's a very famous saying in the Middle East. We say, dress as people like if you want to go out, dress as society expects you to be dressed, dress as the liking of people. But if you're gonna eat at home, eat your liking. So it says, dress like people like and eat like you like, okay? And the fikra that I have, Afikra, is, can I feed people what I like? So can I really feed people what I like? And would they let me? And would they allow me to? So this is something that I hope through the conversation today, we're gonna get to answer through many things. I wanna brush I wanna answer by saying food in Jordan. And in the region, in the region of Syria, Lebanon, this region, the big Syria, it's a very culturally rich, with Iraq, it's a very culturally rich heritage where food is celebratory, and where food, we are one of the most blessed people when it comes to the types of food. We have many different types of food. Like we have the, usually cultures, they have the really fancy food or the normal food, okay? We have the simple food. We have the azime food when people are coming over. We have the Ramadan food. We have the Christmas food. And it's part of celebration in our culture to a maximum part, and it's rich in every sense of the word. And you see simple ingredient being taken to. I remember walking at street food when I was a kid. You can see meat and aubergine both treated in respect to a manner that you can elevate them, and they are both at the same level. Few cultures do have that, where food is a core part of their celebration and their identity. And I was lucky enough to be born in such a culture where most occasions were around food. So if you love people, you would invite them to food. If you are upset with people, you'd make, you'd make amends over food, okay? If someone is coming, you just make them food. So everything is food, 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 food. And
Yeah.
And this was a huge part of my upbringing. But the remarkable part, and I noticed at a later stage in my age, because I shifted my career, is that I've always been fascinated by people with craft.
Sure.
So like my father.
I'm going to interrupt you because I feel like we have a ton to get through. So I'm going to politely just interrupt you because I want to ask you a couple of specific questions. Okay. So you mentioned right now about switching careers. And I actually don't want to brush by this for a second because you started your career like most Jordanian men as an engineer and going into construction, right? Which features very, very, very heavily in the work you do now. You are almost still in the world of construction. But
thank you. I'd like to think design, but okay.
I mean,
no, you're right.
I say that with enormous admiration.
No, I understand. Yeah. You're totally right.
But I have a question about this. Before you made the switch, I want to know what was your relationship with food, you personally? Like Amman doesn't only have Mansaf and Jordanian food. Jordan is a cosmopolitan place that has lots of different things. What was your personal relationship with food growing up?
I've always been fascinated with the craft of anything that uses the hand. Like my father was a brain surgeon, and my mom's family, they're mostly business people, and there is a stigma that comes with that, that you need to be educated in a specific way, you need to do specific things, okay? So it's not like you have the illusion of freedom. So you're allowed to choose whatever you want as long as part of these three things, like a doctor or so. And the problem was I would be sitting with doctors, and I remember there was this butcher like beneath our house, and I would be sitting with doctors and politicians and all these men of business, and I would be just fascinated with the guy just cutting the meat and doing all these things. And so I've always been fascinated with craftsmanship, not just food, craftsmanship. But with food, I've always had the real connection to it. It just fascinates me. To me, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. And my mom would always, and some people would joke, you should be a chef, you should have studied chef, you should have something. But when I was at that time to choose what to study, the culinary art was not something highly looked up to. It was not the thing. And I remember I went to London to study engineering, and London was one of the most horrible cities in the world of food. I mean, the food was just horrible in London. But I just want to say the change that it took in 20 years. Okay, London now is the most interesting cities in the world, and that's where I want to actually come to that later, where we can change. We are the change. And I remember I used to study engineering, and I would miss classes just to watch like Gordon. I used to be fascinated by Marco Pierre White. He's the teacher of Gordon. So I would just like miss electricity 101 or circuits or something. And I'll be just like watching Gordon cooking and shouting at someone and, you're an idiot sandwich, these things. And it's just fascinating.
This risotto is shit.
Your risotto is shit, like, yeah, Gordon, tell him. So to me, that was more interesting than just being there. And I remember actually once the dean, we had this lecture on Sunday morning, and I always missed it. He used to like me because he thought like I'm funny, I'm charismatic, I'm polite. He brings me, he's like, listen, I like you, but you never came to my lecture, okay? And it was like on Sunday, like I wouldn't go to church on Sunday. I was Christian. It's like just really like 8 o'clock or 9 in the morning. So I went once and I sat, and they were discussing, I think, something computer-wise. They released a new chip or something, and kudos to them. I mean, people who fancy that, amazing. I don't. And I was, why am I here? I'm just miserable. I hate this. But I didn't have the let's say the courage to jump into food, and that's what I think and we cannot change ourselves. It's a long journey. See, fast movements and fast changing, this is not change. This is a reflection. Okay, this is a reflex to something. This is as Newton says, this is to every action there is a reaction. And I like to be the opposite of that. So change comes slowly, and you're deconstructing your ideas, your beliefs, and you're thinking, but this is where I'm happy. This is where I'm not working. This is where I find myself. Okay.
Yeah.
And would people accept me? And all these doubts, a million doubts. And suddenly you start going into your career, and then you discover that everything you learned before has made you who you are now. So coming to what you say, I totally agree. My perspective on food is so liberated from the normal chef because I come from a design background. Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, I want to tell you a story. A chef wants to feed you the most beautiful food in the world. I don't really care. I just want to feed you part of the story. So I might feed you horrible food that will like make your eyes pop. And then something after it will be delicious and it will make you tear. So to me, I don't want your acceptance every single dish. Yeah. I want to tell you a story. And if you don't like it, fair enough. I have thick skin to respect that. And so in that sense, it made me a different kind of cook. And the other part is that I've been switching a little bit. We'll talk about this later, into becoming an artist. So, which liberates you even further, Yani.
Yeah.
But as I tell you, shifting career, it's not easy. But I think everything you learn in life, sure, it makes you who you are. All the mistakes you have, everything you've done, it gives you a more unique look. Be whatever you choose to be.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about some of these pieces almost. What is the story behind the images that we're looking at right now, which are what you've called aubergine leather? Insofar as you're telling a story, what's the story here? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, what is the story here?
Okay, it's basically, shall we say technical or a little bit about cultural?
Either one, go for it.
I've always been fascinated by, as I tell you, yani, some people, my belief personally is that I'm walking towards my life with you. There's a connection between you and the world, and some stages, yani, I don't want to get too much into that because it's a long conversation, but I was fascinated by this quote that I always had in my mind, and I tried to create a dish. And usually, if we really put ourselves, okay, and because it's a complex matter, I just want to try to not say it in the longest way. Okay, basically, what I learned through my experience.
Before you say this, Omar, maybe just give us in the most simple way, as if you were explaining to a middle schooler, what are we looking at? What is this thing that we're looking at?
I want to explain how had that. Okay, basically, I've learned that questions are more important than answers, and if you can ask a really good question and then honestly put ourselves and try to answer it, then we'll definitely have a really good answer, no matter what. But the question is more important. So I was just working on something, and sometimes I put myself in work to the point where I'm out of my comfort zone. And at that point, I'm always failing. I'm always in doubt. And what happens is that you change during this. You'll be trying to do something, okay? You never wake up and think, you know what, I want to create. No one is this good. You cannot say, I want to create something, okay? You just be experimenting and looking for something. And then you take a wrong U-turn and you reach somewhere else. And then you start exploring that, okay? And you're full of doubt and you're just asking the questions. It's just, you become better at filtering and asking which questions are worth asking and which roads are worth venturing into. So I was doing something called Darwin's chicken. Darwin said that chicken is basically was a fish. And I was trying to figure out how will you interpret that into a dish where Darwin's fish. And from there, I did the Darwin chicken, and then I thought it'd be amazing if I do this atino with zaytun. There is this verses in Quran, it says atino with zaytun. And the flavor profiling is not available in the world, Arabic world. And it always fascinated me, how come we don't have it as a flavor profile? So I was thinking, can I do that? So I did teen leather, fig leather, and I stitched it on an olive, and it was a beautiful piece. And I was, can I do something more experimental? Can I do our kusa, like our stuffed courgettes with wine leaves? And then I figured out that the aubergine, it's really thick and it behaves like leather. And I went on to create a leather-like material. And that's what my engineering training comes in, and that's where the critical thinking comes in, and that's where Mikey faith comes in, where I was thinking, I was trying to create a leather, but at a certain point, I discovered I changed because I'm putting myself beyond my means. I thought this is actually not a leather. This is a special, unique material. What I managed to do is just find there's something called critical mass point. Basically, if you apply pressure to anything, it will bend. Then afterwards, it will break. Okay, this point is the maximum pressure this material will hold. I had a crazy idea. Does time have a critical mass? Can I break time? Would time quit? And I started using these ancient techniques from Inca to very modern technique, like so all these different techniques. And because I did food science when I was shifting to food, to cooking, I did food chemistry and food history, online courses on Harvard and so many places. So I was just using all my knowledge and just trying to break time and just let it just, I don't want it to rot. I don't want it to break. And suddenly, for no reason, I did so many steps to my best educated knowledge, but then just time quit. Time was like, you know what, just take it. You're a stubborn person. I don't want anything to do with you. And I stumbled upon this very like joyous handmade material. It's nothing like anything in the world been done. Everything in the world is very made in the factories. They pulp everything. They put hydrochlorics and then they dehydrate it. This is the actual skin of the material. And it ages differently. The colors, look at the colors. I cannot recreate that. Like this piece is unique. I can never recreate this piece because this behaves different to the enzymes, to the heat, to the humidity, to all these elements. So I ended up creating this material that is really unique. And I just started, because I'm just one person. I'm not like university. I don't have funding, anything. Just going around like all my cool designer friends and saying, guys, let's collaborate. Let's do something. Come on. I know it's because you need to proof of concept, you know?
Yeah.
And just started from there. And we did a mask, like I did a mask for you. This is just for you. So we did a mask from that. That is breathable now. We're doing furniture. We're doing so many things from that. And it's just started from there. And I'm collaborating with international and regional artists and fashion designers and architects to really create really nice furniture, high-end luxury pieces from that. But it wasn't my intention when I started. Yeah. I never knew what I was getting myself into.
Can we talk a little bit about just the process of creating these masks? So this is, these are eggplants, aubergine, and that's the skin.
Yeah.
And it's a process that you were familiar with of like dehydration.
No, as I told you, Mikey, what happens, you become, okay, I just want to explain, because the process is not 1 + 1 = 2. Once I was reading Dostoevsky and he starts by saying 1 + 1 does not equal 2. And I was saying, what a snob. And then I discovered that most things in life, 1 + 1 does not equal 2. And what happens when you start learning, and this is actually for younger people, when you start learning, you are slave to your knowledge. Okay, the knowledge, you keep learning and they put you in this box and you become more structured and your brain becomes more organized, okay? And you become enslaved by the knowledge that you have. And then one day, if you can manage to break free from that, and then you will enslave this knowledge. This knowledge will become a tool to you. You will no longer be a tool to that knowledge. And only then you can think of everything you know, everything you've studied, every experience you have, and just utilize it in a situation using critical thinking to come out with the best solution ever. So it was just testing, how can I kill an enzyme? How can I preserve the enzyme? Fungus, at what temperature, at what pH? So I have all this information. I was just applying that on many different elements and experimenting. And I created the material, and it's accumulated, started, and then I was kind of stitch it. And then I stitched it. And like the first one we stitched, we did it by hand. And I was like over the moon, oh my God, we managed to stitch it. And actually this piece now, it's framed and it's gonna be part of a huge expo that's gonna be happening. It's like the oldest aubergine alive, because it's like 3 years old, okay? It hasn't rotten, it's still the same, it's stitched. And they can stitch it with a machine. And it's not easy to do that in Jordan because, like, you know, like if you imagine if you go to like to someone with a stitching machine, like, that's an Aubergine, can you stitch it to me? You can imagine what's happening. So I used to fake and pretend it's leather. So I would take it in the beginning to a shoemaker. I'm like, yeah, stitch this. I'm like, that's leather? Yes, that's leather. So, and then little bit, I got people believing me a little bit more. We started using better machines, better craftsmanship, proper engineers, and it became stitchable and it became workable, and we started doing beautiful things with it. And from there, actually, I did something from different, same technique with different materials. I did something with oranges. And actually now I just worked with something. This is something called the duck à l'orange. And this is like a limited high-end brass and orange material. This is like a side table limited. It's a collaboration with architect Karim Sawalha. He's a great architect. And that's what I see opportunity. Sometimes things align. Like I was a huge fan of Karim and I want to work with him. We've always wanted to, and we've always flirted with the idea, but nothing materialized. And then suddenly I see him and he has this line called Animal Line. I see a duck feed. And there's a French dish called duck à l'orange. And I like call him Karim, listen, let's use the orange with the duck à l'orange, and just faith plays itself, you know. And from there, we created this limited edition side tables, and you cannot imagine the pride. Like, this is Jordanian product. We've sold one to a restaurant in Sardinia. We've sold one to a restaurant in Bahrain for Talabashmi, one of the best chefs, contemporary chefs. We've sold to Dubai, to Saudi. We've sold to private buyers, New York hotel. So we managed to actually, and the price quadrupled in like 2 months. So it was a beautiful thing to be able to produce something locally. And as I tell you, and just be able to sell it to Italy. It was a beautiful experience. So that's for the material. As for the interpretation, cultures always evolve. The world is becoming, Mikey, the world is becoming more universal than anything else, but the culture must be the ingredient. So in that sense, I'm fascinated because of my background. I'm fascinated by chemistry, physics, and I cook precision cooking. I use, to some people, it might look like just fluke or something, or just like something unknown, but it's really systematic and it's really meticulous and it's really like mathematical. And basically, I like molecular gastronomy. It's one of the tools that I use. And molecular gastronomy, basically, it's your cooking using precise cooking using science, chemistry, and physics. And I always like to modernize our Arabic food. I like to take our culture and just and deconstruct it and figure out what's the pillars of the dishes are, and then build a new dish from that. Okay, just give you a parallel culture, a different interpretation of take the dish somewhere lighter, make it more, the evolution of the dish. So I did a couple of molecular, and then one of the most amazing designers, her name is Nisreen Abudel. She does something called Naqsh Collection and Naqsh Design House. Basically, they do Arabic and Palestinian tatreez, the patterns. They do the traditional patterns. They do them on stones, on brass, on so many different mediums. And she calls me, she had her collection called Jahazek Shams, and she says, Omar, we want to do a collaboration. We want you to do a mother. How can you put a mother on a dish? Okay. And imagine someone gives you, what I do is very conceptual. And it really is, there is the basic thing you can see, and there is a hidden message within in everything. So to most people, it might look, maybe they will not understand, there is that. So she's like, we want to put a mother on a plate. And I was, my God, how do you put a mother on a plate? So we were sitting in her atelier and in the studio, and between her beautiful art, and we're like, I was like, Nisreen, what's a mother? And God bless her, she says, I think mother is containment. And I was, I think mother is containment. I think mother is giving as well. Mother is all these things. And from there, I just left. I went to the car, and I thought the pattern was something to do with Palestine. So I thought an olive. So I was thinking an olive tree protruding from the ceiling, and it's coming down onto the plate. And there is this tree. It's big. It's all these leaves and branches. Okay, and then just comes out one baby, one olive. So all that mass just to produce, which is what a mother does. The containment. If you see, like, there is this small olive on the plate, and it's contained by all these bushes and all that just to produce this. And I thought we'd make it transparent because I wanted to show I wanted to. I've always thought people who tattooed in the past, it was something not very trendy, and I thought, but I've always connected when I saw someone that tattooed Ummi. Like, I would see a serial killer or someone really tough, and he would just have Ummi tattooed on him. And I always felt that this gave me an insight of his human side. And I've always been, I thought, closer or like more humanely to him. And I called her, I want to do a very rough tattoo. And she's like, but we're very clean. It will contrast beautifully. So I ended up doing a broth of olives. And this broth, and it takes like 2 days to make this. I just do a broth of olives, and then I would clarify it so it's clear, and then I would color it a little so it's a little bit green, and then I would cast it twice with a little bit of the seed in the middle. And after that, I would bring a food dye, and I would use a pin just to write Ummi, like the tattoo. So you would have this protruding olive tree, and then there is this most beautiful olive that's transparent, and you can see the seed, and there is the like Ummi written in a very classical Arabic way, like someone just doing it like that. And I thought it was beautiful, yani. And I wrote a poem to go with it, yani. So it was such a beautiful thing.
Okay, nice. All right, let's keep on going. I want to talk a little bit about part of this series is trying to focus on a single ingredient. Every guest of the show is going to either pick an ingredient, a traditional dish, a recipe, or a technique. We spoke beforehand, and I asked you which one you wanted to talk about, and you mentioned Jameed. So for those of us who are unfamiliar with this ingredient, just at its most basic level, what is Jameed?
Jameed is it's milk, sheep's milk. It's the milk. They take the butter from it, and then they kind of salt it, and they make it into a rock-like form. So it's a very solid form, and it has preserved life in this region. Yani, like I think always food is an expression of the culture, an expression of the region itself. So you're talking about the desert. Imagine people with milk in the desert, okay? And they don't have the caves in France to make that kind of cheese, okay? So imagine how resourceful they created this exotic, most unique ingredient just to this region, okay? It's like a rock. And if you see it, if you hit someone with it, you can really like do damage. It's that like, and it's—
Well, the name is Jameed.
Yeah, the name is Jameed. Like, yeah, it's salty and it's non-apologetic. It's like, yeah. And it has preserved life for like 1,000 years. And basically, it's dehydrated yogurt or milk with a lot of salt. Okay, and they carry it when they travel, and once they want to eat, okay, they just dissolve it with water, okay, and then life comes to it, and it's this delicious, most important dish that we have in our culture. And when I was trying to do something for our culture, how can I reinterpret our culture? I was asked to do that for Amman Design Week, and it was such an interesting task because I was educated. I had the knowledge. I did not know how to use my brain, okay? And a common friend, I was like, listen, I Googled. I didn't find anything. She was, so go do it. And no one has told me that before, because before I was always learned that I must learn something from someone, not figure it out myself. So I went to figure it out myself. And that was like the hardest 3 months of my life. I swear to God, you cannot imagine.
This was what year? This was 2017 or 2016?
That was 2016.
Yeah. And the friend is Rana Beiruti?
Abir Seqali.
Abir.
I was asked to do something for the Amman Design Week. And It was, my God, it was, I just went, I worked in a falafel shop for 3 days. First 2 days, the guys was telling me how to do things and how creative he is. And people throw creative very loosely, you know. So then the third day, I was being creative in front of him, and the guy was just in shock. He was, oh my God, what is this? And then I just started experimenting. And then it just hit me that Jameed is the pillar of our culture, and nothing is more relevant than Jameed to us. And then the question that I figured out was, Jameed is very comfortable to us, okay? And then at that moment, I was just trying to figure out what Jameed is to me and what Jameed is to my friends and to us and to the foreigners. And it just hit me something. I was thinking, you know, the term exotic, because I was experimenting so much and I was learning at that time. And I was always leaving the house and I just look at the plant outside. I never saw this plant before. And I was thinking, I've never tasted this plant, okay? And yet I go and buy pineapple, and to me they're exotic. Yet they are 5 minutes away from the supermarkets. They came from Brazil, but they're not exotic. They're just here. Where the plant in front of my eye, okay, I've never tasted it. I've never even seen it. This is actually what's exotic. So I was trying, can I make Jameed exotic to a Jordanian? Can I make this material that's very unapologetic? And I did that. I mixed it with chocolate, and it took me like 2 months of failure. And Mikey, it's scary because, first of all, like now I have many projects behind me. So, you know how to go around things and how to do things and how to use your brain faster, how to get things. But at that time, I did not know any. The only thing I had faith. I just felt there was a feeling in me that I'm going to reach something. But I was just testing and failing miserably. And all of a sudden, just this feeling came on me. And I thought, Omar, you're feeling because you're treating Jameed and chocolate with prejudgment. You have already judged them and you know them too well and you know how to cook them. So why don't you treat them like you've never seen them before? And I just went to the oven and I just cooked them like I've never seen them before. And this beautiful combination came from that. And that's when I started my experience or my journey with Jameed, and we did something called Jameed Chocolate, which actually I sent it to some of the best 3 Michelin star restaurants in the world. And the chefs there, or a French person, they thought it was just goat cheese, like an exotic cheese. And Jordanians, they would have it, there's this sweetness. And they can smell the Jameed. So, and like chocolate, and they would be shocked. And then they would just, and then the journey takes them through a journey where they're like, okay, this is horrible. What's happening? Oh my God. Okay, this is Jameed. Okay, why is this happening to me? Okay, and then suddenly they're like, okay, the sweetness kicks in. Okay, that's nice. And then the afternoons of the chocolate, and you'd see it literally, and then smile. And that was the first time I learned I can evoke emotion through food. And from there, that's my journey with Jameed. And I started understanding Jameed more. And the next project with Jameed was, you mentioned Rana Beiruti. She did a fascinating job. I might design me the second one, the one after. Okay, so I did the catering for the first one. No one talked to me after because I did Jameed Chocolate. Okay, and then the year after, Rana, God bless her, she calls me and she was come do something, and she gave me a carte blanche, and I've never seen such support, and they were phenomenal. They were really phenomenal, and it was a crazy idea. Something I've learned from Ferran, a technique he did. He's the god of molecular, the father of molecular. It's basically a building material that's edible. And I started trying to figure out how do I make Jameed into an edible. So I was trying to do an edible material. And then I thought Jameed is calcium. Why not use it? Because I was in building material before. Why not use it as a building material? And I started developing and testing. And I sent a small head to Rana to test it. And until now, she did not eat it. I think she still has it, but she's never tasted it. So managed to develop this material into an actual structural material, and managed to recreate something called the Ein Ghazal, where it's the oldest statue known to man found in Jordan. It's in the Louvre now. Some of it's like 30 statues. Some of them are in the Louvre. And we created a replica that's edible from this material, solving all the problems of structural, exoskeleton, all these things that we needed to solve. And the most beautiful part, that's what when I was doing the edible Jameed, I wanted to do samples where people will eat it. So the Jameed chocolate was very sweet, and the Jameed concrete it was the building material. And that's what I thought. I don't want Jameed to be apologetic. Jameed is harsh. It's from the desert. It's really, it has preserved life, you know? It stops in time. You freeze milk in time, and then you recall it when you want. And I was thinking this should be prominent in this Jameed chocolate, in Jameed concrete. So I did this very most like strong Jameed concrete. And on the day of the opening, I was going, you know, Sahel Hiyari? He's one of the most amazing architects in the world. And God bless him. I was just going to him, and I think he had Bernard Furi with him. Okay, and they were there. And I was giving them Jameed concrete, and he thought it was Jameed chocolate. Okay, and he just put it in his. He's like, "Oh, Omar did this thing," and God bless them. It was a dust cloud of Jameed, and I had to actually make it less offensive for the next day for the clients. But yeah, but at that point, I was thinking Jameed is really something really strong and not apologetic, and it expresses my culture more than anything else can.
So, Omar, I'm going to switch to a quick Q&A, and then we're going to open it up to questions from everyone. I'm going to try to keep these about a minute each. Okay, so right now, you're very well read. What are you reading or watching right now?
I'm very affected by things. So I try to read based on, I read philosophy, I like to read theology, I like to read. But at the moment, I'm going through a transition period where I'm trying to understand things. For that reason, I'm not reading at all. I'm just trying to, I've crossed the point where reading can help me from people. I just need to experience some things. So I'm going through this phase where I need to figure some of the existential things about me, my culture, all these things. So I'm actually not reading. I'm just focusing on work and just trying to be inspired by nature, inspired by the universe, inspired by the people in my life. Just so I'm not reading.
Okay. Who would you love to shadow for a day, past or present?
Past, I would love to shadow. I love David. I think the soul is made out of a material. They once asked what was the soul made of, and no one could answer. I think the soul is made out of something that is very contagious, very effective. My Kareem partner, Kareem, he says the soul is 21 grams, the weight of it. But I think the soul it's made out of something very contagious. Beauty can affect it, or ugliness can affect it. And that's what I try to always put beauty in front of people. So it will change them with time. So I think one of the most beautiful things I've seen is David by Michelangelo. And no matter how many times I look at it, it's just beautiful. And once you see something so many times, you don't see it in the first time. So I would love to be at the moment he unveiled it, because I would have seen it for the first time. And I think that's the most beautiful object in the world, personally. Living, Ferran Adria, this is the guy. I had this picture as my profile picture for 3 years. This guy, there was food started with curry cream, then escoffier, then came Ferran. They structured the food into a science, or into a syllabus. And this guy, he just blew it away. This guy just took science and did everything. And he's the creator of molecular gastronomy, Ferran Adria. So I would love to shadow him for like a month or 2 years, 3 years, until I get into jail, until someone catch me and I go to jail. Or shadow him.
Okay, a little lighthearted questions. What is your guilty pleasure sort of food choice at midnight?
I love food.
Midnight.
To me, food is timeless.
Yeah.
Like, listen, to me, food is timeless. Don't tell me midnight, morning. I eat anything, anytime. So, but my favorite food, I am Arabic. I think we have the most beautiful food in the world. So, to me, like maglube is my love. I love. When I look maglube, I've seen people love their children less, or their other part. I'm like looking at maglube, like really focusing on it, and I'm like, I'm coming to see you now. So so definitely maglube. Mansab, I would eat the meat. I love the meat of mansab.
Okay.
Shawarma, So I think these like these Middle Eastern food, yeah, that's what I like the most. You should see me at the Sikh of shawarma. I'll be like looking at the guy like, because I love the craft in that. So I'm really like, these are my influencers. Like really like the shawarma guy, the people doing these things.
Yeah, it's poetry in motion. Okay. You kind of brush up on this, but what is the dish that reminds you most of home? Not necessarily Amman, but like your childhood.
Food is the dish. It's the most important dish in my life was my grandmother. Once we were sitting together, and we had this soba, this small fireplace, and she put this bread, and we ate this laban, and this was beautiful. I remember like I was trying to eat all the laban on top, and she just shouting at me I should eat fair amounts of the skin versus the yogurt. So in a sense, food is functional to most people, but in the core of it, food should be about passion, about love, about any. I always say I can express to you my culture through food more than anything else. So to me, it'll be these moments where I'm eating beautiful produce, like salata, like tomatoes with onions with olive oil. This is one of really beautiful dishes. Really nice taboon bread with olive oil, maybe some laban. These are the simplest, I think, things and the most I love. Secondly would be the food, maglube, all these things. But I want to brush on something that I think is very important. I always really believe that if I were to tell you, if I were to take you to Russia and you try the food of Russia, okay? And you immediately imagine that this is a cold country, these people have limited resources, these people don't have a lot of summer. And if I take you and you eat Greek food immediately or Mediterranean, so food really translates culture more than anything else can. So I really would go for my basic ingredients that are found, which are the highest quality. And that would be actually my favorite dishes. And they would take me different places. And maglube, of course.
just work that into everything.
Yeah.
I feel like
when I'm sad, I Google maglube photos, to start like.
I feel like I could ask you anything, and you're like, cornflakes and
maglube. Yeah. I did. I'm doing something now might be doing something with Dubai Design Week. And actually, I'm doing this floating tent with the Aubergine leather. And in the same Bedouin style, nomad style, and our ancestors, the filling the filling, I'm aging it in a specific way, and I'm doing it into something that like maglube candy. So you're gonna have Aubergine maglube candy. So yeah, so basically, yes, I can create one day cornflakes candy maglube, yes, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, I want to open it up to questions.
So actually, my question that was both of us dress as people like, eat as you like. So the chef Omar, he said that I want to make something that people will love it. So my question was like, how can you make people love your cuisine? Because some people, they like this and they like that, especially for Arab people. I had this experience when I've been traveling in Korea. So mostly Arab people didn't like Korean food. So yeah, can you just, for me, this is the first time, like I never tried Korean food actually. So my question is, how can you make people love your food?
Where are you from?
I'm from Morocco, but I used to live in South Korea.
So Korea, all right, okay. Yeah, my intention is to say you are Korean, okay? And you like kimchi, correct?
Yeah, sorry, he's on mute again. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so the idea that I'm trying to say is that from saying that people want you to dress in a specific way, okay, and eat in your home, but what if you feed them something? Because feeding them something, you're touching them on so many levels, on the hearing, on the food, and all these things, on the senses, okay? So would people allow you to change the status quo, to change the norm? You like kimchi, would you allow me to put coffee with kimchi and then feed you something different, okay? By doing that, you're going to be resistant to that. 100% you're going to be resistant. Okay, some cultures more than other. Okay, so in the Middle East, for example, we are very comfortable with our things. We're not used to creativity. We're not used to being questioned, being tested, being think differently. So once you feed someone a different interpretation of an ingredient, okay, most of them, they will not like it. It will be an experience. Some people will love it, but the majority, they will not, because you are changing something in them. So it is more than food. What I was trying to say is, if I go to Korea and I open a hummus kimchi place, okay, most people will be offended because I'm changing what they are comfortable with. Some people, the first people that will jump on it, these will be the leaders, of course, and the world will go there. But here the idea is that the person who starts to change the reality, okay, especially when I believe that we need change, we need to follow the world where it's going. Once we start doing things that are very private, food, everyone eats 3 times a day. So food is a given, everyone is a food expert. That is a problem, by the way. People are not medical experts, but with food, everyone is a food expert. So when I come and I test every belief you have, and I just tell you, you know what, this is not right. Jameed is not only with meat. I will give you the chocolate. I'm gonna build with it, okay? I'm really changing the basics, the common knowledge that you have, the comfortable level that you have. And in doing so, some will like me, mostly will hate me, because they will think I'm not making them comfortable anymore, okay? So that's what I said. I know you allow me to eat at home what I want, but would you allow me to feed you what I want? And the answer is, in the short term, no, you will not. But if I have enough thick skin, okay, I will change you, because everything that started as not normal, in the end, if it's good enough, it became normal. So change is inevitable, okay? It's just we have to, so in the short term, people will resist it. But long term, people will actually, any change is the only constant thing in the world. It's just people don't like to be questioned in the things that they're most comfortable with. So that's what I meant when I was saying, would you allow me to feed you what I want? And the answer would be, of course you would not. I have to force myself in that.
Okay, next question comes from Fadi, who is going to be on the series in a couple of weeks. Fadi Qattan. Fadi, are you there?
Fadi!
Hi, Omar.
Habibi, love you.
I love you too. Omar, I have a question. And we've talked about it in the past, but now I'd like to share it with people. How do you think modernizing cuisine and fusion food are different? And how do these two impact your thinking and production process, or creative process?
Okay. First of all, when Mike told me we were doing that, and I saw the lineup, and I really told Mike, you are an amazing talent. And the reason for that, to create a series that's called Matbakh, okay, and to have all the people there culturally relevant, not just cooking. This is not about recipes. This is about the culture. That's not an easy task. Okay, and Mikey, I salute you. You've managed to do it. Next series is next episode is gonna be Fadi. Fadi is one of the most fascinating chefs in the world, and he's representing Palestine in the most beautiful way, both in ingredients, in culture, and in cooking. And the difference that I believe in, the reason Fadi and everyone in the series stand out, is that cooking at its basic form, it's a functionality of feeding people, giving them calories, okay? But at a higher level, food is culture, cooking is culture. So understanding what a culture is, this doesn't come from you knowing how to cook. This comes from you knowing Nietzsche, Descartes. This comes from you knowing theology, reading your history. This is a completion of your knowledge. So food becomes an expression of your culture, of your intellect, okay? Now, in the chef, there are in the chef world, there are like 10 million people that can really cook. 1 million that are exceptional cooks. Let's say 100,000, yet 1,000 famous ones. The reason they are creators, they can create. So to be able to take the culture and figure out what's relevant in this dish and what's not relevant, what do I keep, what I don't keep, a few people can do that. This is called al-fikr. This is called to think, to be able. This is the approximate to the creators, you know, to be able to create. So this is not everyone can do that. Fadi is one of these people who can. I think fusion is basically when you blend two things together, and they blend beautifully taste-wise, they blend beautifully as a dish. It's beautiful for the side, for all these things. Where I think to modernize food, to modernize a culture, you need to be like, I cannot modernize the Indian food, for example. I would fail at that miserably. Fadi, I don't think he would be able to do that, but we can modernize our Arabic culture. So the idea is that the difference is that I would say fusion is really someone that's really talented with the palate, with flavor profiling, with mixing things together. Where modernizing Arabic food, it needs someone understanding the culture, son of that culture, understanding the history, loving the history. You need to find yourself in that. It's a byproduct of love. It will not come out of, it's not something that you do for money. It's something you do because you don't know why. There is something very important I really believe in. There is something called الذي لا يعرف, the unknown. And this is what makes humans who they are, the uniqueness of them. If you take someone like Shakespeare and if you teach 10,000 people the same exact life path and education that he had, you would never have Shakespeare. So what I'm just trying to say is that there are some unique people, I think, that they can take culture to different places because of their rich, rich complexity of things. So I think the difference is very prominent between modernizing and fusion, and they are both very important. I think you need 10,000 fusion, that's maybe 5 or 10 modernizing. And Fadi, you know, I think you're a genius, so you have to be a genius to do that. So I really think already you're a genius.
So Ahmed, we're out of time. I want to ask you one question, just a final question. I'm going to try to get you to answer as quickly as possible. On the topic of modernizing food, do you feel like your work is primarily concerned with modernizing food from this culture, or do you think that your work is almost concerned with creating art using food as a material?
Very good question. We evolve. I never thought I wanted to become an artist. I just am expressing myself. So in the sense of, I don't think they go either or, they can go together. It's just a matter of, like Fadi, and he expresses, everyone that you have, they want to express themselves, okay? And I'm just growing more of, I want to express myself. I do want to modernize my food. That's where I started. And I did not ever wanted to call myself an artist or to become an artist, but I just been drifting to that. And at one point I crossed the line. When I crossed that line of cooking and art, I was uncomfortable for a week. Like I was like really struggling with that. But names are not the most important thing. The calling things like names, I would just say, just to spread our culture. I think we really have a beautiful, rich culture. And I'm not apologetic about using this culture in many different ways and just trying to express it to the world. I really think with the people you have, the amazing lineup you have, people like Fadi, like Sami, that's doing amazing work, Anissa already is doing amazing. Everyone, come on, everyone on board, Tariq, everyone. I think these are taking our culture to beautiful places. They are getting into people's houses. They are getting into people's minds, into their life, into their spirit. And this is art more than anything else. This is the art of telling a story, the art of telling a culture. So in the essence, it's all art. It's all, whether I'm telling you, whether I'm creating something from something else, but this is using all the ingredients that I have, all the materials. Part of this I've learned from my grandmother, seeing her dehydrating things. So you cannot say this is where this begins and this stops. I think it's just a continuous thing. At the bottom of it, it's all about storytelling, and we just want to tell better stories about our culture because it is a beautiful culture. There is nothing, we're not making anything up. We're just telling things that's been there for thousands of years in just a very modern accent. That's it.
Okay. Well, Ahmed, thank you for kicking off the series. I really appreciate it. This was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you to everyone who joined.
Mikey, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me and enjoy. You have an amazing lineup. Can't wait to hear you guys and really great work. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your day or night, wherever you are. We'll see you next time.